Skimlecast Season 2, Episode 2. And today we're going to go academic. So we're going to talk about qualitative analysis and Skimle in the academic context. And I will not be the expert today because I'm not that. But luckily we have Henry, who is a professor of, I always say, of qualitative research. But
no strategy. But I've been doing qualitative research for 20 years, more than 20 years. Yeah, so it's exciting. Things are changing, and I've been going around universities talking about AI and qualitative research. I spend my free time writing academic papers about this topic. So now that I no longer work at the university, it's my hobby.
I remember last time we talked about Christmas plans. I was like, oh, I love Christmas. I can do like 2 papers. But anyway, so what's big in qualitative analysis and AI at the moment?
Well, I think the attitudes are changing. So people initially thought that, it's going to automate the interpretative process and it's going to replace and everybody will become lazy. And, I think the academic term now is cognitive offloading, that like instead of thinking about things, we just ask AI to do them.
It's like a good or bad thing?
I think it's seen as a bad thing, but of course
sounds
there's
very
something.
Fancy.
Yeah, something like, oh my God, I would like the cleaning offloading to my dishwasher and vacuum cleaner. No, so I think the attitudes are changing. That it's more like a tool that allows you to go deeper and explore things more robustly and speed up the kind of the non-creative parts, like going, like just reading manuscripts and finding quotes and stuff like that. So,
No, and I also read that debate quite a bit online, and I think it's like there's a few, I think, things that people on purpose are not understanding or defining, and that kind of causes the issue. I think one is there is a range of kind of depth of thinking required in qualitative research in a way. Like this qualitative research ranges from the spending a year doing ethnographic research with some culture somewhere in the Pacific Island, and writing and reflecting very detailed things about observations, and then all the way into like you have 100 fields of open text and you want to find some common themes, and they're both qualitative analysis. And I think people kind of use examples from across the spectrum to disprove the other points. Then the other thing is, I think within that qualitative analysis, you have different steps. So you have the kind of the deep thinking, theory building, all of that. And then you have some very rudimentary work, like does this quote belong into this? And kind of also there people kind of complete. And then you have the different tools. So I think for some AI means, putting everything to ChatGPT or Claude and saying, please analyze this and don't hallucinate and so on. And then you have the high quality tools like Skimle, which is like really doing it transparent, rigorous, and so on. Kind of all of that gets lumped into this qualitative in AI thing, and then you have like people who are and people who are that's rough.
Yeah, I mean it's I hear so often people say that AI hallucinates, so you can't use it, and no, I mean AI does hallucinate, but Skimle doesn't because we use software, regular software. To actually verify that no quote that you see is anything but what is in the exact document. So I think there's a lot of misunderstandings. Also, there's some kind of fear and pain and the question of identity that like all these skills I have accumulated, like do I need to toss them away? Which is actually not true, because I think the core skills are still the same, like doing a good analysis.
And it's just I think it's the same as in the lumberjack profession in a way.
You get the chainsaw?
Yeah, exactly. Like in the old world, you had the manual saw, right? And then you had lumberjacks who would be using the manual saw, and then with the invention of the motor saw, it's not that people like me would be led to the forest and say that, hey, cut some trees, right? It still requires skill. And that that kind of skill of a good qualitative researcher is still needed. Actually, it's needed even more because now all the time you're doing analysis, you're in that most. If you can do the manual simple part automatically, you're always spending time in the zone when you are making sense of the data, you are doing theory building, you are digging deeper, and all of that. So you get faster good in that part of the judgment part because you're not having to do all of that.
And I think there are two dirty secrets that probably apply actually to consulting. I don't know if it's exactly the same. And one thing is this over reliance on the star informants. So when you do like the manual qualitative research, you know that like 20% of people say 80% of the knowledge because they are more articulate, more informed, better positioned, more they like you more than the others.
Agreeable.
Yeah. And then what happens in this kind of non-AI thing is that you just toss away the 80% of interview material because you kind of know for sure that it was not very informative. But actually when you use AI, you get also the insights from those. And there's actually, when you start looking with AI, there's a lot of nuggets of insights in all interviews. So that's one thing, that you get broader coverage. And the other dirty secret is that in qualitative research, when you do it manually, you lock into the kind of the approach to data, because it's so painful to revisit all the data and code it again. Like in a research process, there's only so many times. It's typically it's like 2 or 3. It's not one time, but 2 or 3 times. You look at your data and say, okay, I need to go through this again and I need to code everything. But I think we learn about the data set, we learn about what's really interesting, and with AI it's easier to tell the AI, okay, go through this again, but now instead of looking at this concept, I want to look you to look at this other concept, and maybe I can switch how I approach, how I organize my results. And just like, given that people also need to produce work, they have careers, they have teaching, it's like you can't refine your approach as easily without as you can now with AI.
And I would add a third dirty secret, just based on kind of friends I have whose summer job or kind of job has been to do the coding. So you have this separation in the team, that you have the student or the person who does who knows what's actually in the data.
Yeah.
And then you have the professor who knows what should be in the data and writes the paper. and this kind of that, like, especially when we talk of larger materials, like, I think this, of course, you probably have the full team reading through once of the materials. Hopefully, I would, you should. That's step number 1 in all thematic analysis processes. But then that depth of understanding sits mainly in few of the more junior researchers, instead of then the full team having access to the kind of refined full data set that they could go.
That's actually that's very true, and that's what I've heard from some professors. That in reality, the professor typically looks at the data tables, right, and maybe reads selected interviews of those star informers that were thought to be like the most relevant. But nowadays, like with Skimmel, what you can do is you can put the data set there, and you can very quickly get like what are the teams, and you see the richness of data. And sometimes the student would say that, I don't see anything related to this. But then when you go through the data with your eyes, with your understanding of the concepts, you see that, okay, these quotes are about that, and we could like make this story of why things work differently. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe on that whole debate of like good or bad, the multiple things, I think we would be kind of cautiously pro AI. And of course, we're AI product company. But I think
very cautiously, yeah.
But that cautiously is important, because like I think a lot of our time is spent around like how do you make it so it actually supports the researcher, instead of trying to be the dump or offloading dump, right?
Yeah.
So meaning that how do you always maintain that full two-way transparency. So as a professor, as a PhD researcher, you can go into your material and you see every snippet, how it's being coded, and you can go to a category and you see what all is here. So that two-way transparency. Manual control, it was not in the original one, now it's fully there. So you have full control over coding. So you can, with the kind of classical coding you had in the old world software, like NVivos of the world, you could do the manual coding. You can still do that. There's quite a bit of AI assistance there, so it suggests the category, suggests the name and all of that. But you can do fully manual coding. You can change your data structure. You can change your merge categories, all of that in a smart AI-driven way. But you have full control over that, and then you can export into the old world tools with this Refi QDA or QDPX. Format.
My favorite old world tools you can export to a PowerPoint and Word.
Yeah, and with Word you can do, we have the Word report, but you can export into a kind of the source documents with the coding as comment boxes, which is I think a lot of people who don't have, who don't pay like €1,000 per year or something obscene for the NVivo type of tools. They actually use that quite a bit to code, use the comment box.
I thought there's like one person who requested the feature.
And there was one person who requested that feature. But I think actually that button has been used.
Okay, yeah.
So people actually want to see coded and that's the whole beauty of that we're using AI in a way which is actually doing the hard work of coding. Because basically, if you just upload your material into a chatbot, they're not coding. They are coming up with summaries and so on, but nowhere can you find a coded set of data.
Yeah, I mean, I had one colleague who's got the Mac subscription of Claude Cowork, and they were saying that actually they have to go back to Skimmel because Cowork is actually hallucinating the quotes. So they are trying to create a final report for a stakeholder from a qualitative data. So it's kind of to get the research access, you promise to write a report also so for the organization. And the fact that even Claude is getting better and better, right? But you get like a surprising amount of hallucinated quotes, and then this is a complete no-go, right? That it destroys your credibility and also the credibility of the tool. If
exactly, and I think, by the way, they should rebrand it. I think hallucination is bad. If it's kind of cognitive offloading, they should be somehow like refinement or kind of enriched responses.
Yeah.
So you get back even more than you get. But anyway, and I think the hallucinations, and we're not going to pretend that we know the full theory behind it, but I think it's somehow an inbuilt feature or phenomenon of a large language model. It's been known for 3 years, right? And the core way the LLM works, because it spits out a plausible answer to the question. And of course, hallucinations, this enriched responses often are more plausible than someone likely would have said something like that.
Yeah.
And then unless you build something around your LLM as a harness, no matter what you tell in the prompt, because people used to think that if you tell the prompt that think like a qualitative analyst and do the 6 steps of analysis and don't hallucinate, and the people thought that somehow the LLM would listen and nod and say yeah, okay, this time I do. Of course, that's not the case. They just answer how plausibly they should answer if they would behave like an analyst, but they're still not doing those steps because they would take a lot of time to do those steps.
Yeah. And the one thing is that Skimmel, by combining traditional software and AI, we make it very predictable. So like with chatbots like Cowork, because it's agentic in a sense that the AI figures out what to do. Even if you have the same prompt, it could actually do it different ways, different times, and it can decide to look at different documents and not look at all the documents and stuff. So I think one of the things why researchers like Skimmel is that once you start using it, you know that it always works pretty much the same way.
Yeah, and I think very soon, I don't know, there's rumors out there that kind of Claude will not have that Cowork and code available in the €20 plan anymore. So they're kind of pushing people towards higher plans. So I think, which is the whole theme of like the AI providers want to reduce the amount of processing that their machines are doing per query and increase the price. So you'll have even less quality analysis, more plausible looking, but even less kind of incentives to actually read through all of the context window, even if it's a large context window. Just kind of we need a fancy term for that, like
that's why we have different tiers for different amount of processing, because we actually like incur real costs when we analyze the documents, right? So
exactly.
There's the starter tier that is 20 euros a month actually if you buy whole year in advance, but then
exactly. And then because we burn tokens when we actually do it thoroughly, because I think qualitative material deserves a thorough review, because basically we're kind of taking a step that a human would spend weeks on. So of course the AI should also respect and do it properly bottom up and stepwise and so on, not try to fake it in one prompt.
I mean, if you have expensive professionals, you don't hire a summer trainee,
and then whip them like faster.
Like the cheapest one you can get, like
So yes, so that's for academics. So did we talk about?
Well, there's one thing. Did we talk about anonymize for academics?
No, explain
that. So the academics who do research in organizations especially, but also like vulnerable groups and so forth. So typically we need to get ethics approval from internal review board, research review board, or ethics review board, and typically there's demands on data management. So you should anonymize or at least pseudonymize your data. And that's been such a hurdle, nobody wants to do it. If you want to do it properly, it's a lot of work.
The summer trainee again.
So we created Skiml Anonymize, which is an AI-driven anonymization tool. Like really designed it from the ground up. What is this thing you can do in 2026 that you couldn't do a few years ago?
Tell a bit more to our curious readers who are dying to go test it, but are not at the computer right now. They're driving home as quick as they can after the podcast.
So our tool detects all kinds of entities, so organizations, individuals, geographic locations, also times, codes like social security codes from all of your documents. And we give you full control. You can redact them so that they are censored. You can create coded pseudonyms like participant 01, or you can abstract so that, Helsinki becomes a Nordic capital city. And those pseudonyms are changed throughout your document. So if you interview, let's say, 20 people from one organization, you want only to become Janne, but consistently in all the interviews. And we have full control. So if there are two Ollis in the organization and you know that these two interviews, it takes you 2 clicks to say that, okay, this separate them. And you can say that, okay, anonymize or pseudonymize all the titles. But then they talk about the prime minister. You can click that one and say, okay, retain this one. Don't anonymize this one. So so you have full control. You can use it in a few minutes. You upload all your files, say, create light pseudonymization and export the files. And that's it, right? Like that's the thing when you don't have real confidentiality. Like nobody's talking about...
that's the low option, right?
That's the low option. Or you can say redact everything and you go through quickly and see that, it actually did that. It also flags up risky statements that can help the anonymized people So like you say that I was working on that project last spring, this project, and then it will alert that, okay, this may actually allow you to tell who the person is.
There's not that many people who were in the project.
Exactly. And it has like low risk, medium risk, and high risk. So we are really, really happy with it. It's pretty cool.
It gives you a kind of audit report, or basically it tells you what it has done.
Yeah.
And this you can use as a kind of piece of the kind of background material for the research, and kind of give the ethics board or something. Hey, this is the way we did anonymization. And you can delete the key as well.
Yes, so there are two options. You can download the key as an Excel file, so you can keep it somewhere safe, not on the shared hard drive maybe. But then you can go and see, okay, participant 05 was actually this person. Or you can just say that we want full anonymity. This translation key is deleted forever. No. The original documents are deleted. We just like retain the fully anonymized data.
Yeah, exactly. And all of the files, when you put them to the tool, they are in the Skimle secure cloud environment. We delete the originals, all of that. So it's kind of built to be secure. It's super cool. Also, kind of on the business side, I'm actually have understand where to use it, and we have users kind of now starting to explore. But because quite often you might be interviewing a bunch of people in the organization, and that you need to kind of share those insights with a wider team. So maybe within your consulting team or your market research team, where maybe you as the partner had a very sensitive discussion with the CEO, and then you have a team of 5 or 10 junior analysts helping you, and it already within the team starts to be a bit of question that how widely should we distribute the originals versus should we kind of anonymize them before we put them to the corpus. And then as you're sharing quotes, you want to make sure that your source itself is anonymized, so you don't have to worry in all of those quotes or snippets that are we kind of ruining the promise of confidentiality we gave. So I think also in a consulting setting, it's good to put it.
And I think one example we discussed is exit interviews, right?
Yeah.
That basically to have any impact, the exit interview learning should be shared.
Yes.
But then they are almost always there's some personal data.
The good ones are dynamite.
Yeah. But there's personal data, right? You don't want to share them without some level of anonymization, right?
Yeah, exactly. So everyone complains that Bob is a now we have to come with a great terms. I was
cognitive
about to say,
offloader.
Cognitive offloader, not an asshole, but a cognitive offloader. Then probably not everyone in the organization should know it's Bob. Everyone should know there's management challenges. Maybe tell Bob separately. But in a way, be able to share that material for the insights at scale, while making sure the Bob's identity is not revealed in any way. So as I think there's a lot of data that is sitting in the silo in the organization because it has aspects of confidentiality or kind of identifiable information. Same for phone call records. If you have customers calling you and you want to analyze them, typically it's only few people who can do the analysis. Now with Skimle, you could anonymize them, put them to the data set, and have different people coming at it from a different angle. What do they talk about my product, or what do they talk about, technical challenges, and kind of come with different angles to the same set of data, because you can trust that data set doesn't have social security numbers, customer numbers, names, all of that.
Yeah.
So it's again we opened now a new era of qualitative analysis for the masses, and for the high end, and now this is part of really unlocking.
And unfortunately, it can't be a fully automated step because the AI is 99% kind of reliable, right? So there still always needs to be that human oversight a bit on the data set to be fully certain.
Exactly, and challenge with AI always that you don't have the neck to choke in a way that they don't feel pain, so you need some accountable human, of course, to stand by that this is the anonymization I have done and this materials. But this tool makes them 99.9.
Yeah, and it saves. I don't think it's exaggeration to say that it saves at least 95% of time.
Yeah, exactly, because then you get sensitive to read the final snippets, you start to pick up those.
Yeah, and you don't need to actually do anything.
Yeah, and we haven't really, in our testing, I haven't found even that 1%. I think we have to say it's 99%, but I have not come across I think it's sometimes even a bit more paranoid than I would be.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good
good
thing to have. one final theme before we wrap up the episode. Qualitative interviews at scale.
Ah, that's interesting.
That's another
yes.
bomb, right? So
this is for academic audience. This is quite like controversial, I have to say. So we developed Skimlecast, which is inspired by Anthropic Interviewer. It's a AI-driven interview tool. I don't like the word interview. It is an interview tool, and it has voice support, right, for answers. But it's basically a new way of gathering data that sits between the traditional surveys, where people do multiple choice questions and open answers, and an interview where somebody's asking you questions and follow-up questions.
Yeah, exactly. And it's exactly, it sits between. It's neither of those, because it is, if you compare to an open text box, it's so much richer, right? Because with Skimlecast, you can ask also multiple choice question, but it really shines in these open areas where you define the opening question or the theme, and then you tell it what direction you would want to get the discussion. Like, if you ask about feedback on a product, you might say that, give also comparisons to competitors or dig deeper to concrete examples. You guide where it should take, and then in the interview situation, the AI interviewer smartly picks or kind of creates a follow-up question. It acknowledges the answer. Thank you for sharing this, and can you give a practical example? Or kind of, there's a lot of smartness in when does it ask a question, when does it go on, when does it kind of thank. We added a bit of always being very thankful for the person, like how much to be sycophantic, how much to be harsh, and there's a lot of optimization to actually elicit deeper and better responses. And which we're now getting. But so it's much richer than an open text. But of course, it is not the classical 1 hour or whatever, 2 hour skilled qualitative interviewer looking at the pauses and the hesitations and reflections and connecting on emotion level. It's not that. And I think it would be stupid to claim it's that.
Yeah.
But in between, I think it opens quite many new avenues for. It's a new tool, and with new tool you can do new stuff. Right?
Yeah. I think it's exciting, and it's like when you call it interviewer, people will say this is like completely not that. And one thing we find that people we've tweaked it. So if you tried it when we launched it, it's now better. It's more empathetic. It's like we get longer response. We get it extracts longer responses. But like with interview, you force people to sit 1 hour with you basically, or 45 minutes. You book the interview, they are there. With this AI-driven interviewer, one thing is that you can use it with your mobile phone with voice, so you can speak to it. But people don't respond that long. So a typical, I think, response is like 5 minutes to 10 minutes, something like that. But it's much richer than what the survey would be.
Exactly, and I think it's a new method, and I think it's a real mixed method type of like somewhere in between. I think the best researchers from both fields and the kind of new ones, especially will need to figure out like how do you really get like where is this tool the right one?
Yeah,
like it's hammers, nails, screwdrivers. Like you have to find those new things. But I think having a new tool opens up completely new avenues, because if you take qualitative research, like I know it's not a scale game, but still, there's some areas where you would want to have thousands of people. Of course. If you want to look at different geographies or different kind of subsets or just scattered information, like the phenomenon is not very common, it's difficult to sample, right? And so there are areas where you actually want to have a large sample. And previously that was then meant that you get like 1 to 5. Do you think like you got really crappy crappy insights? Now you can, like, with the same budget basically, there's always a budget, right? It's time or money or whatever, with the same budget you can get richer insights.
The problem with all surveys, and also I guess with that, is how do you figure out the way to get people responding? With traditional survey, I think it's been going down every single year. You get less and less, smaller and smaller.
And the ones who answered are the ones who just click the button to get the whatever €5, €10 thing. So you get this like.
Yeah.
Or now with the AI, I think you get the AI doing tick 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 tick. AI speed runs.
Yeah. So that's a challenge, right? And I think these platforms where you can buy respondents, they are losing a bit credibility because so much of that is AI.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of discussion online that the answers to open text, for example, are boilerplate ChatGPT stuff. Yeah, but we hope we're giving a new tool to people. We're really keen to hear and see what people are using it for, because I think it's going to be good. Anthropic made their big 80,000 respondents. I think they positioned it, maybe wrongly as a qualitative study. A lot of people reacted in that, but I think there was kind of value in having, the pulse of 80,000 people.
Yeah.
We hope to have similar, kind of like larger sample AI-assisted qualitative surveys, whatever. Like the language here is important. I think it's emerging. Like you have, it's not qualitative research with a big Q, small Q, whatever. It's not a survey. It's like, but this in this area, I hope to.
Yeah, and it goes so far beyond the open answer boxes where people just write a few words, like to really kind of get that diverse knowledge and views from people. Yeah.
So that's I think we covered a lot of the academic things. If you have follow-up questions, if you want to be a podcast guest here or remote, if you're against something we say, if you want to debate, as I said, we're cautiously optimistic camp. But if there's like super optimists or someone who think that we're talking bullshit and kind of are hating us and saying that AI will be the death of research and too much cognitive offloading, the whole brain goes to the dump. Let us know and let's have a discussion and episode. I think this is the kind of a pivotal point in this profession, basically. In a lot of professions, this is now really, it's about identity work. It's about regret. It's about sense of losing. And I hope someone is doing qualitative research about qualitative research.
But also other professions. I think public sector workers. There's a lot of thinking. What is the future with AI coming?
Yeah. And we leave our listeners to do some of that thinking as well. So, great having you in this episode, and see you soon in episode 3.